Hi friends, this is Caly with you today, sharing a fun bridge card made using the Double the Fun set. I wanted to create this Noah's Ark scene, and I wanted lots of dimension and layers and found that the bridge card was perfect for building this scene. I love that the card can be propped up on its own, but can also be folded flat for mailing in an envelope. Isn't that fun? So before I dive into making the bridge card construction, I'm going to stamp and quickly color my images with Copic markers. We're going to be speeding through this because my technique really doesn't change when coloring. I usually lie down the darkest colors first, either in the nooks and crannies on both sides or on one side of a drawing line, depending on whether or not I want to add shading with a light coming from a certain direction. Anyway, I'm adding the darkest color first and then just blending out with the lighter color. Most of the time I blend with 3 colors, but for small areas like the rainbow and the cloud, I'm just blending with 2 colors. So after I've done coloring all of the images here, I am going to add some white gel highlights with my Uniball Signo pen. I'm just going to add a few lines here and there, and I always do this on the images to help them pop. So we'll set that aside and begin working on our bridge card base. Alright, now to create my bridge for a landscape oriented card, I'm going to start off with a piece of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 8 inches. If you know what you're doing for your background, you can go ahead and ink blend or stencil now before scoring. In fact, I would recommend that you do that before you score to prevent any harsh lines from ink blending. So do as I say and not as I do. With my panel, and once you've ink blended, go ahead and put it in your scoreboard and score it at 1 1/4 and 2 1/2 inches on both sides. So after scoring your lines, you'll want to burnish them, of course, and I'm doing it backwards here by ink blending after I score. So I am just using the cloud stencil here to add some light shading and just adding a nice background for my scene. I am ink blending with the Berrylicious ink from MFT, and then after doing that, I'll go ahead and begin working on the other elements for my card. Once again, you just want to make sure that you burnish those lines and make sure that everything lines up as they're folded. And then you can begin working on the bridge. This bridge needs to be 5 1/2 inches wide. So I've got these 2 pieces here, and I'm going to go ahead and ink blend them, trim down the pieces, and then add them to my card base. For the wave, I'm ink blending with cornflower and then after midnight ink around the edges just to give it a little bit more shading. And then after die cutting the ocean waves dynamics, I'm going to go back in with the darker blue after midnight and then add some more shading at the top of my waves. Then do the same with the sand portion of my bridge. I ink blended it with craft ink, die cut it, then again went back in with the craft ink, hoping to get a little bit more saturated color at the top just to give it a little darker hue. I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but the hill here is die cut using the stitched snowdrifts dynamics. It is stitched on the other side, but since I've flipped the die, you won't see the stitch at all. So it's actually multi-purpose, and I like being able to use it for hillsides also. So before adding these 2 pieces together and adhering them in place, I'm going to go ahead and add some wave lines by stamping and embossing them in white. I thought this would just add a little bit more texture to my water. And then I'm going to add some glue and adhere my sand so that it doesn't cover up those waves, but leaving enough space also for the boat and as well as the animals on that piece of hillside or sand. And then I'll trim that and then glue it to my card base. You want to make sure to only add glue on the flaps that are popping up because you don't want your bridge card to get stuck together and then not pop up the way it should. I applied adhesive to the left tab first, and then I'm going to fold my bridge over so that I can line up the other side and add adhesive to the other corner as well. I'm just going to apply some pressure and hold it down a little bit, and then play with the folds once more to make sure that everything is lined up just perfectly so that it can be folded and put in an envelope from both sides. Alright, so once my bridge is secure, I'm going to play around with the placement of my images. Once I'm happy with where I want things, I can go ahead and adhere them down more permanently with glue. I love all these cute little critters, so I'm just going to add my little mouse here at the bottom where the elephants are, and then I'm going to add one of my birds on top of the boat there, and then save my second bird for later after I've finished attaching my sentiment and my rainbow and cloud. So for my sentiment, I wanted to use a longer sentiment that would stretch from one end of the bridge to the other. This provides additional support for my bridge card, but also makes it all a little bit more interesting, I think, because I can adhere the rainbow to it as if it's floating in the sky. So I have embossed my sentiment here on black cardstock and then die cut a banner from it and adhered it to my bridge card, making sure that there's enough space also for my rainbow and cloud. So once I've attached my rainbow there on one side, I felt it needed a little bit more support. So I'm using a piece of acetate to adhere the two together on the left side there for some extra support. My final step is to add that little bird that we just talked about. So I'm adhering that to the little corner of the cloud there, and it's just floating. I just love this scene so much. All the animals are safe on land, the boat is drifting away, and a rainbow is out shining. This is a great card to bring a smile to any friend's face, or even a great card for someone having twins. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for stopping by, and have a great day. Bye.